I want to thank the witnesses for being here today and our members for their interest in the issues we will be discussing. Today, the Subcommittee on Water, Wildlife, and Fisheries examines the recently proposed rule by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service entitled the Biological Integrity, Diversity, and Environmental Health Rule, otherwise known as the BIDEH rule. While this rulemaking is in the public comment phase, given the concern expressed by those affected by this rule, this committee is holding this oversight hearing. Our witnesses today will discuss many of the concerns associated with this drastic and dramatic change in the rules designed to govern management on our refuge system. I will highlight some of these. First, and perhaps most egregiously, the rule creates a default position prohibiting use of management tools essential to protect the use of our refuge system. For example, management tools including normal and historical agricultural practices and native predator control are prohibited unless a full NEPA process and or other bureaucratic nightmares such as completing a scientific peer review are completed. The service under this rule is instantly prohibiting practices and means of working on and around refuges, restricting the discretion of refuge managers and putting at risk the very purpose of individual refuges. My district in Oregon is home to 12 national wildlife refuges, including those located on the Oregon side of the Klamath Basin. According to the authorizing law, these refuges, quote, shall be administered by the Secretary of Interior for the major purpose of waterfowl management, but with full consideration to optimum agricultural use that is consistent therewith. Of course, when they were established, this was an important part of the negotiations leading to their existence. The proposed rule absolutely undermines these efforts and is an open invitation for more litigation. It should come as no surprise that some of the most vocal supporters of this rule are anti-farming and ranching organizations, including groups who have advocated phasing out farming on the 22,000 acres of refuge lands in the Klamath Basin, not to mention tens of thousands of acres of other refuge land located around and across our nation. Agriculture, whether by grazing or planting crops, is an effective tool for managing refuge lands that also benefits wildlife. These relationships not only deliver meaningful conservation benefits to the species, but also provide valuable recreational opportunities for hunters and those who visit our refuges to view wildlife. Instituting this default restrictive position prohibiting these practices will seriously damage, if not destroy, the relationship between the agricultural community and the refuge system. The prohibition on native predator control included in this rule is equally troubling. As I previously mentioned, many refuges around the country have wildlife-specific purposes, such as areas for waterfowl and sea turtles to nest. Unfortunately, this proposed rule dramatically undermines the ability for managers to capture wild predators such as raccoons, skunks, and ghost crabs who feed on the nests of turtles and waterfowl. Unfortunately, the rules does not define what constitutes a native predator, quote unquote, and ignores the fact that predators don't just stay inside the refuge system. As we will hear from our witnesses today, this approach places the refuge system management squarely in conflict with state game and fish agencies who are primarily responsible for managing predators within their state's borders. Lastly, the rule contains vague and concerning language, allowing the service to address any supposed threats to refuge resources that may arise from outside refuge boundaries. This gives the service enormous discretion to determine what constitutes a, quote, threat, end quote, and how far outside refuge boundaries this authority may extend, and what appropriate actions could be taken to address such supposed threats. If you are thinking that what I've described is a drastic approach to managing our refuge system, well, you're right, it is. Yet the service claims it is simply codifying and updating their decades-old BIDEH policy. In essence, quote, nothing to see here. I, for one, am highly skeptical of that narrative, and I look forward to the witnesses' testimony regarding this proposed dramatically, politically driven change to our refuge system. And with that, I also ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter on the proposed rule from the Klamath Drainage District, the Klamath Water Users Association, and the Tule Lake Irrigation District to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. Without objections,